thank you so much for that. And as I'm listening to you kind of plant those fence posts for us, leadership really is the backbone of the organization. And I love this step that we're taking to say that it's not only made up of a small number of senior leaders, which I think sometimes we think about and we look to that C-suite for so much direction, but the backbone really of leadership is made up of all who are paid to lead in the organization. And if that's the case, well, how are we developing and tending to that health of the backbone, Vid, so that we lessen those triage situations? We are in a maintenance type of approach, so that I think when those situations happen, we're well equipped to deal with them. So if that's the case, if developing and tending to the health of the backbone requires or is about all who are paid to lead, then in my opinion, that requires that all who are paid to lead have access to leadership development.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
And that means, again, not just those senior leaders, but sales leaders, service leaders, and team leaders. So that makes a lot of sense to me. But then I say, okay, but what's the reality? What percentage of that entire backbone, all who are paid to lead, are really receiving the interventions they need or have access to overall leadership development programming today? Yep. And truth is, Vid, look, the number that are actually receiving
Tiny.
leadership development, it's little, right? When we were talking, you said this, and it really resonated with me. You said it's 1% of the top 5% that are actually engaged in that type of programming that is so important to building the health of the backbone. And so that to me is a real concern and makes me, leads me to wonder, how is the health of the backbone in the organization when the accessibility is for so few leaders?
Yep, exactly. Yep. Great question. Yep.
Yeah, and here's another truth to Vid. It's that the majority of those training opportunities are geared to, so there's just a few, right? A small number, but even within that, it's geared toward that top level of leadership. It's geared towards senior leadership. Think director and above positions. And it's like providing nutrients to the top of the spine, but not to anything else. And so what happens to the stability of the spine when we approach leadership development in that way?
Yeah, it makes it really, first of all, it's if you think of it in the construct of the human body, that's why we kind of started there, right? It's like the reason I was smiling was because I'm almost thinking here, it's the equivalency of the human body saying, oh, you know what, I kind of like the top 4 vertebrae of your backbone, so you know what, I'm just going to give nutrients to that. Everybody else, you figure it out, right? So we think that's silly, right? But it happens today, correct? Like, to your point, what's the percent of those approximately 24 million managers who are getting the intervention they need? And you made a very important point too. So first of all, it's a very small number, but to your point, it's also kind of focused on the leader, right? There's kind of that whole thing about is it even effective in the way that it's delivered today? I don't know. You had some really interesting thoughts there, and I think it'll be great if you could just go into that a little bit.
Yeah, and I think it to your point earlier of continuing the conversation that we've had over now several events. What it brings to my mind is that whole idea around giving the leader one skate, and thinking about the hockey analogy that we had. And
I remember the story. Yeah.
Right. 2 skates, and that the skates be sharp, and that the skates fit appropriately in order for a strong skater to really make the most impact that they can out on the ice. And when I think about it in terms of the backbone, I think about it in terms of, oh my gosh, we're right back to only giving the leader one skate,
Mhm.
because the type of programming that is available is very leader centric and not connected to the business, to business practices that it takes to really drive results.
Yeah.
And so we're right back into that same conversation. But in this case, it's available, leadership development is available to senior leaders. Great. Here's the news. It's really only one skate of the two that they need. But what's happening to the rest of that
Yeah.
backbone? And there might be some things available to them
Yeah.
that I don't want to say
Oh,
there isn't
yeah.
anything. But what is available to them typically is very tactical in nature.
Yeah.
It's things like, here's how you fill out the performance management form, very process
Yeah.
oriented types of things. How you handle a time off request, or you post an opening that you have on your team. And so it isn't in any way, shape, or form tied again to business practices that it's going to
Yeah.
take for them to drive results in their function.